right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar from Tom Lambotte, CEO and founder of BobaGuard. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items so you know how to participate in today's event. At any time during the webinar, you'll have the opportunity to submit your questions. To do so, just type your question into the chat at the bottom of the control panel. As time allows, Tom will address as many questions as he can. At the end of the presentation, he will answer any of the remaining questions he couldn't get to during the presentation. We will be recording this webinar and will share the link after the event. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tom Lambotte, the CEO of BobaGuard. Enjoy the presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Ellen. So I'll be direct. Brenda, it's just you today. So you have my full and undivided attention. I've been traveling, I've been busy. Sometimes we get these webinars and there's a whole bunch of people. Sometimes there's just one. So with that being said, feel free to jump in and add any questions. I want to make it as valuable for you specifically. So on that note, since I know you're in the chat here, I would love to learn a little bit about Brenda, right? Tell me about the firm, what role are you in? And more specifically, what would it take to make you attending this webinar today an 11 out of 10 for you? So I'm gonna give you a minute. Let me see. And I clicked on allow to talk. So if it's easier just to jump in and talk, feel free to do so. Assuming I haven't scared you off. Hello, Richard. Thank you for joining. We were just getting started. I was actually telling Brenda we've got a small group today, so it's just Brenda and Richard. So before I just jumped in, we got here all the latecomers are dropping in here. So we've got a small group. So what's great about this is it's intimate, and I'm happy taking the time to kind of slow down, answer any questions that come up. And so the question I was asking Brenda is, what would it take to make today an 11 out of 10 in terms of taking your time, your precious valuable time to go through this webinar here? So if you want to go ahead and drop it in the chat here, go ahead and spell that out. M. Garrett, tell us where you're zooming in from. Richard, do the same. Again, I want to make it interactive and super valuable today. So as you guys drop your responses here, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and get started. So welcome to our webinar, Beyond the Basics. A comprehensive strategy to safeguard your law practice and cyber attacks. And we're going to talk about how to protect your client data from hackers, malware, ransomware, and other digital threats, all the bad, scary stuff. Now, I have had countless consultations over the past 17 years with lawyers where they shared with me, a really close call or that they experienced themselves, a really close scare, or actually having a data breach. Or quite often there's also direct tales from colleagues, in their buildings, or they've heard, someone that it happened to. And if you have been the victim of a data breach, you know how scary and stressful it is. And if you haven't, you might be thinking that it's not going to happen to you, but that is not the truth. An ABA report showed that 29% of law firms have suffered a data breach. I believe it's a lot higher than that because the 29%, those are just the ones who admitted to it. I think there's a few more out there. And the sad truth is it's only going to get worse. Cyber criminals are going to continue to get more and more sophisticated. This AI stuff is going to be used in nefarious ways by these cyber criminals. I have a new business where I teach AI to CEOs and executives, and there's a lot of great things it can do. But when it comes to AI, one metaphor that I use is you can use fire to cook your dinner or burn down your house. So there's going to be a lot of great things that come from AI, but there's going to be a lot of negative ways that cyber criminals use it. You've got deep fakes, voice cloning. I'm already hearing about new things coming out. So they're getting more sophisticated, and you are a target whether you think that you are or not. But the good news is today I'm going to share with you exactly what you need to do so you don't become a victim. Here we go. So today you're going to discover the most modern and effective methods that small and mid-sized law firm must be using to stop cyber criminals. You're going to discover, it's actually more than 8. Ellen, if you can make a note, we need to update that on the slide. The most modern and current cybersecurity solutions that I recommend that'll greatly reduce your risk of getting hacked. You're also going to discover the easiest way to add massive protection in the least amount of time possible. You're all busy. You have more things than you can ever get to. You know cybersecurity is important and you need to get to it, but it's hard to really commit enough time to do it properly. And so I'm going to teach you how you can do that. The presentation today is for you if you're in a small to mid-sized law firm, if you're a lawyer in a firm that size, if you're a firm administrator or an in-house IT manager. If you could, I'd love to learn more about who's here today. So if you want to hop in the chat and just kind of tell us the role in your firm and what's the total head count in your firm, just so I have a better idea of who's in the room today, who am I talking to. Today is also for you if you want to be proactive, right? Instead of being reactive so you can sleep well at night. The sad truth is there's far too many law firms not doing enough, using the, crossing their fingers, hoping that they're going to be good approach, and it's not enough. And lastly, it's for you if you want to do everything you can to protect your firm and client data so that you never have to tell your clients their data has fallen into the hands of cyber criminals. It is a absolutely horrible experience, and I don't wish that upon anyone. So the first thing I want to talk about is that businesses are under attack, okay? And I've got this little video that I always love sharing because what it does is it shows you inside the mind of a hacker and how they think, and I think it's going to be really kind of eye-opening to you here. If you could in the chat, just tell me that you can hear this and that the video comes through.
How did you decide to become a hacker?
Well, I'm not really sure what it means to become a hacker.
Can everyone hear that okay? Give it a little thumbs up or say yes. All right, Ellen says sound is working, so we're gonna move on.
That's like some guy in a hoodie who types really fast and stays up all night writing code and cracking passwords. It's not me. I just spy on people and see what makes them click. It's not a bad job.
Mark Hanning, CEO of BobaGuard, set to report earnings after their blockbuster IPO.
So you consider this a job?
I put a lot of work into this. I'm not lazy. It takes research to figure out the key players, learn all about them, their families, their friends, what they care about. You have to understand the company's organization. I get a lot of my information from the sales department because they're always so quick and eager. They're hungry. People trust too easily. They don't look at the details. I do. Details matter. That's what I'm good at. It has to look completely believable. It has to look familiar. This is where research is important. It's not some generic piece of spam. It's an email from their boss with their company's signature. It's written in the voice of the boss. It's what he would say if he were writing this.
What about the malware itself? How does that work?
Somebody else out there already wrote all the code that does the actual attack. I'm just using it in the attachment. My skill is in my ability to get a bunch of people to click on that attachment. I always wonder what it's like when the whole thing unfolds on their end, when the panic sets in.
Please leave your message after the beep.
Hey, this is Rajiv in finance. Call me as soon as you get this. Something's up with my laptop. I can't.
Are you on your way to the office? Something's going on with our file servers.
Karen in HR, our benefits dashboard seems really slow. We're getting calls from users on it. Give me a call when you get this. Joining conference now.
Apparently, there's a malware attack targeting our main...
It's ransomware. They're holding us hostage.
We're locked out of everything. I can't even check my phone. What about the backup?
That will take days.
We need this fixed now. You pay it. We don't have a choice. We're reporting earnings in 2 hours.
But how do we know that they'll...
pay it. Put every single person on getting us back up and running. That's the only priority now.
Okay, it's done.
I have the decrypt key. Mark, we have a big problem. The ransomware was just to distract us. They got inside. They got everything. Customer data, financials, everything.
BobaGuard is reeling today from the news that hackers have released the personal information of nearly
The
2
Nasdaq
million
closed
customers.
lower today, led by BobaGuard, which was down 14% on news that the recent data breach may be far worse than the company
Its stock
originally
fell to a
acknowledged.
new all-time low on news that CEO Mark Hanning is stepping down after what is turning out to be one of the worst breaches of personal information in recent history.
Do you feel bad about releasing the personal information? All the financials? All the money that was lost?
All I did was get the files. I'm not the one that decided to release them. I'm not the one that shorted the stock. Somebody else had their reasons for that. It's above my pay grade. I was paid to do a job, and I did it well. And that's what's expected of anyone, isn't it? Anyway, markets bounce back.
Crazy, right? That one never gets old. Every time I see it, it's like, wow. And the thing is, my biggest concern when I show that video is like, well, we're not some giant, public company on the stock market. But the thing is, AI and all these different tools and automation is making it easier and easier for cyber criminals to target companies, individually in large quantities now. So as you can see, cybercrime is experiencing an exponential growth. It's affecting every single sector, every type of business, anyone you can think of, because if you take one point away from this, it's that these criminal organizations, they are businesses. They're run no different than your business. They have lawyers, they have hackers, they have salespeople, they have developers. They are funded. The Chinese government, North Korean government, Iranians, right? There's so many bad actors, and it's a serious source of revenue. And so these nation states are funding a lot of these cyber criminal organizations. Okay. So this is just in 2022. The breaches have been off the charts, right? So Uber, TikTok, Facebook, the North Face, the LA Unified School District, right? Now, if you think about this, all these are giant companies that have all the resources in the world, and they're still having trouble stopping this stuff. So what does that state for most small and mid-sized law firms, right? They don't really know what to do. So businesses of all sizes are under pressure, okay? Cyber attacks have increased over 50% in the past year. It's not slowing down anytime soon. And one of the scariest things is that when the bad guys come into your network, it takes almost a year on average before someone figures out that there are bad people in the network. So here you can see it takes 277 days to figure out that it's happened. They don't get into your network and immediately, install the ransomware tools. They don't get into your email through 365 and send Viagra offers to everyone in the database immediately. We're going to talk about what they do more today so you have a better understanding. But essentially, it's people exfiltrating your data and doing whatever they want with your firm's data. Phishing and spear phishing are growing exponentially. A single breach can cost an average of $300,000. Many businesses, it goes into 7 figures or even millions of dollars. And most businesses actually end up going under, within 6 months of being breached. And we're going to talk about the impact, on your law firm when you do suffer and go through a data breach. If you look at the IT teams inside small and mid-sized law firms, small law firms have no IT team. Right, you mentioned, Brenda, you're the firm admin for a 10-user law firm. You probably are the IT team, right? It's very common for the office manager or firm administrator to also be responsible, in addition to all the other hats they're wearing, to be the IT person, right? And they're looked to for taking care of cybersecurity. So, or it's the founder of the firm who's managing the technology, especially in smaller firms. So you have nobody. But then even if you go into mid-sized law firms who do have IT teams, they're running lean and mean, right? I talk to firm administrators routinely with 100, 200, 300 employees, and they have 3 people working in IT. They simply cannot keep up. All they're trying to do is stay on top of support tickets, keep computers and the network up and running. They don't have the time or experience to really address cybersecurity properly. In addition, hiring in new trained employees is difficult at best. There's a talent vacuum, right, for highly trained IT personnel. If you can find a certified IT security person, it's going to cost you easy 120 to 140K in salary. Then you add 30% for overhead, benefits, taxes, and all that stuff. If you find an experienced IT guy who you'll train on the cybersecurity stuff, it's still going to be an $80 to $110,000 average salary. And that's if you can find and recruit them. Resources are just simply, too limited, right? People working in IT, they're just trying to stay above water. So there's just no way there's enough time to do it all. Now, once you're hacked, once your law firm, actually has a data breach, there's 7 major impacts that you need to consider. Number 1 is losing all your data. Like, really consider that. Imagine you got a phone call and say, all of our data is gone. That's just absolutely terrifying to me. Losing everything would certainly be a kiss of death for a law firm, if they didn't have good backups, or if their backups were also encrypted and lost. Number 2 is your sales cease, right? I've seen this firsthand. We're going to talk about a real world example about the impact of that. And number 3, it could take weeks or months or even years to repair the damage, right? You've got customer damage, social media, the impact and the damage are employee layoffs, right? I'm fortunate that I've never had to do that. We got through the lockdown unscathed, but can you imagine needing to lay off your staff? You've got the trifecta. You've got massive additional expenses. You've got the entire firm is unable to do billable work while the firm is shut down, while data forensics is going on to find out what happened. And you're going to lose a ton of new business for months or years from the damaged reputation and the letters that you have to send to every single contact in your law firm's database, right? You've got endless legal bills. You could be getting sued by your clients, other vendors as well, who could have been affected by the breach. So it really doesn't end. And you might also have to contend with federal and state audits after the breaches, right? If you're tied to healthcare and you have HIPAA requirements, you could have the HIPAA cops coming after you. And that's not going to be good. So I do want to create a moment of zen here, because I know that's, it's heavy stuff, but I do want you to breathe. I had this slide in because I to remind myself to slow down a little bit, because I get passionate about this. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Tom, you're just fear mongering, right? My answer to that is yes, you're damn right that I am. The truth is I used to shy away from this, and I was really self-conscious when I kind of started up the cybersecurity company about being seen as a fear monger, because I'm not like that. But the thing is, this is just one firsthand story and example. And I know from spending 17 years working in the legal field with lawyers and firm administrators that most of them truly believe it's not going to happen to them, and they kind of go on living in denial, or they kick the can down the road, or we're too busy, we have too many things going on, until they get that phone call out of the blue one day. And then instead of being proactive, I get kind of the reactive panic call. And so I believe it's my kind of duty to do everything I can to help you protect your firm. And the good news is that if you do what I ask you to do, what I just talked about does not have to happen to you or your firm. Now, who the heck am I? Let me go through some awkward self-promotional bit with logos, photos, and the cute family pic. So I'm the founder of actually 4 companies, but I just have 2 on these slides that are kind of tech related. So Global Mac IT, I started in 2006, and it's a nationwide full service managed service provider that works with high growth law firms who exclusively use Apple computers, right? So law firms that use Macs, we help them out. But the thing is, only about 10% of law firms use Macs. And the other fact is that not everyone needs a full service managed service solution to outsource everything to. And so that's why I started BobaGuard, which is a cybersecurity suite built specifically to meet the needs of small and mid-sized law firms, whether they use Macs or PCs or a blend of both. I'm also the author of four books now. Ellen, we got to add my newest book that just came out. I don't know if some of you, we met at the ABA conference in Seattle about a month ago, but there I had the first copies of my new book called 37 Cybersecurity Tips for Small and Mid-Sized Law Firms. But you can see I've written a couple, these books a lot of them are focused on Macs. One was published by the ABA Law Practice Division. And you might be thinking, well, Tom, you're just a Mac expert and we use Windows in our firm. The fact is, though, that cyber criminals don't care if you're on a Mac or PC these days. It used to be that viruses were the biggest concern and Macs were pretty much immune to them. But viruses are no longer the biggest threat. And whether your firm is using Windows or Apple computers, you are vulnerable to cyber attacks. And that's why I created BobaGuard. Outside of running these two companies, I also run a company called One Day Work Week that helps CEOs kind of get the structure and balance in their lives. And then I'm also have a new collaboration that's teaching AI to executives and their senior teams. In addition to that, I also speak at legal events nationwide. I like to take pictures with celebrities like Robert Herjavec and Tony Robbins to make me seem far more important than I really am. I'm also a prolific writer on the intersection of cybersecurity, technology, and the law, and I've been published in a lot of different journals, Law Practice Magazine, bar journals, the magazine of the ALA a few times, and so forth. Outside of all those things, what I love most is my family. My wife, Christine, and I adopted our 4 beautiful kids, all here in Ohio, straight from the hospital when they were just 2 days old. And Kaya is our youngest on the right. Eliana is 12, going on 17. Atreyu, yes, for fans of the Neverending Story, that's where he came from. He is 9, and Malia is also 9. And then to round out the family, we have 2 French bulldogs. And Boba in the bottom right was actually the inspiration of our logo for BobaGuard. And the reason I share that is because just like you, you have a family that you love, and just like me, you've got a business job that supports your family. And the last thing that you need is for a cybersecurity criminal to come in and blow everything up and put your family and your business and your income stream at risk. And for years, I had to turn away a lot of solo and smaller firms who were not a fit for GlobeMac IT because we have a 10-user minimum. Eventually, though, I realized that what a lot of them needed was help with their cybersecurity. And even when it came to small and mid-sized law firms, there were very few options where law firms could go and get all of their cybersecurity needs met. The only way they could get access to cybersecurity tools were either one by one, kind of figuring out all the tools and signing up and configuring them and dealing with all the complexity of rolling them out, or going to a managed service provider who, the managed service provider world, in my opinion, has a lot of issues. There's a lot of kind of high pressure selling. They kind of get their foot in the door, or they make you sign up for their entire managed service program just to get access to the security stuff. And I thought that was wrong. I want to kind of simplify it and empower more people to get access. So I went out and I built BobaGuard. And before I go into kind of the solutions you want to be looking at, I think it's important to point out that you will never be able to secure your practice from cyber threats and the risks of a data breach 100%, because that's impossible. Just like Teslas, they are the safest cars on the road. They've achieved the highest safety ratings ever, but there's no such thing as a car that's 100% safe. Now, that being said, what you can do is drastically reduce your risk using affordable solutions. And by the way, near the end, I promise to share with you how you can implement this knowledge without adding further demands on your time. So over the past 17 years, we have spent thousands of hours at GlobalMac IT researching, testing, and implementing the most effective cybersecurity solutions for law firms. We've gone through a ton, and going through all those, we curated the best. We now depend on these to protect our company as well as our clients. So I want to share with you what we discovered so that you can focus on running and building your law practice without having that constant kind of nagging fear in the back of your head of getting hacked, right? Are we doing enough? Are we adequately protected? Oh man, if something happens, they're going to come knocking on my door. And the way to do this is with a layered security approach. And a layered security approach is similar to the approach you often see in the classic heist movies. I've always loved those kind of movies. Think The Italian Job or Ocean's 11 are some good ones. And in these movies, you've always got a team of burglars that has to get past obstacle after obstacle, each one a little more challenging, before they finally gain access to the jewels and then make off into the night. Now, they can't get past 2 or 3 of the obstacles and then get the jewels. They have to get past every single one. So that is a layered cybersecurity approach. Okay, so it's not just one tool like, oh, we've got 2-factor authentication, so we're good and we can rest, right? It's having multiple different solutions in place that really builds a fortress around your law firm. So here are the layers of security that you need to implement within your practice. It'll vary a little bit depending on the size and the sensitivity of the data within the firm and the kind of law you practice. But each of these work together to provide enhanced protection. And we're going to go through all these, so I'm not going to read through them right now. But before we do that, I want to introduce David Eltringham. He's one of our current clients, a good friend now as well. And he is the managing partner of a personal injury firm in Florida. I think they have about 10, 15 people, so they're a small firm. And I want to share with you what happened to him before we began helping him with his cybersecurity, before we met. We were with a different IT provider, an hourly pay-as-you-go type, and got badly hacked. The funds in our trust account were almost transferred to Hong Kong. Now, David never ever thought this would happen to him. So again, I want you to imagine this is your firm and you're talking to someone else about it. That was the aha moment. What we had been doing was not working, and we needed to do something entirely different. You cannot imagine the carnage that does to a small business having to send out that kind of letter. As a result, the phone stopped ringing. But what was really freaky for me was when I got the list of the stuff we didn't have and had never heard of that we should have been doing. Our liability would have been off the charts for negligence. There would have potentially been gross negligence because of the exhaustive list of stuff we didn't have to adequately and reasonably protect ourselves. And at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And for a law firm to say, well, gee, we had no idea. I mean, how does that play in court? So I think the thing is with BobaGuard, I sleep well at night and don't worry about the things that used to keep me up. So let's go ahead and work through these solutions. Now, all of these slides we're going to be sending to you and make available. So feel free to take notes if you want. But if I'm moving too quickly, don't worry. And I don't want this to be stressful for any more stressful than it probably already is given the topic. So take notes, but we're going to send the slides. So don't stress out too much about writing everything down. So security layer number 1, nothing new or surprising here, cybersecurity training. If your employees are trained and knowledgeable about the risks, they're going to be better equipped to protect the firm, right? Now, if your team does not retain the lessons, the training is worthless. That is absolutely crucial. I have heard of many law firms that bring in a cybersecurity guy once a year to do a 4-hour training. That is not going to be adequate. No one is going to absorb everything taught in a 4-hour cybersecurity session. Their heads are going to explode, their eyes are going to glaze over, they're going to take their phones out of their pocket and start doing work and kind of tune out. It's generally agreed that a human element is involved in 82% of data breaches, 82 out of 100 breaches. So they need to know what a phishing email is, how social engineering is used to extract information from employees, the dangers of reusing or sharing passwords, and the list goes on. They need to be educated about what are the risks, what they need to look out for. And the best training, there's a lot of really crappy cybersecurity training. I don't know if you can, if you know what I'm talking about here. Many of them are spoken in a absolutely boring, monotone, you just kind of tune out automatically. The most effective ones use storytelling, right, to help educate everyone. And it's got to be fun. It's got to be engaging so that they understand and retain the information. So that's the first security layer, cybersecurity training. It needs to be ongoing every single month. You need to be able to track who's completing the videos, who's passing the quizzes at the end. If someone's not doing it, you've got to have the nerve to point them out, even if it's a managing partner, because all it takes is a single person on the team to let someone in and create carnage. Security layer number 2 is a little bit newer. Not as many people are familiar with this, although it's starting to become more popular, but these are phishing simulations. So everyone knows what phishing is. Just in case you don't, I don't like to make assumptions. It's a method used by cyber criminals to get your credentials, right? And they do this by impersonating a company or a person. There's a whole bunch of different flavors of phishing. You might have heard of spear phishing, whaling, smishing, vishing, and so on. I'm not making these up, although it sounds like I might be. But the point is, these are all versions of phishing, and it's a huge threat vector. So smishing is through SMS, right? You might get text messages where they're trying to get your info. You've got video. I've heard recently about AI cloning people's voices and sending you a message in audio. So it sounds like it's your, cousin Albert to send him money. So it's a huge threat vector. And what phishing simulation is, it's a newer solution where a trusted cybersecurity partner sends phishing emails out to everyone in your firm to help find out who's actually clicking on the links, right? Who's entering credentials, specifically who needs additional training, right? And this is critical because 91% of successful data breaches start through phishing, right? Just getting your credentials. If I can get the keys to your house and get in, I don't even have to break the door down. It's easy. And this may increase as 400% year over year. Cyber criminals are doing this because it works and it's the easiest way in. And without having a tool like this in place, you have no idea who right now today is clicking on links and endangering your law firm. Security layer number 3 are IT security policies. Definitely not exciting, but it is crucial. These are needed because you want to establish basic security practices for employees like passwords. You want to set appropriate internet use guidelines that detail penalties for violating company cybersecurity policies. Establish what are the rules of behavior on how do we protect client data and so forth. According to the ABA Tech Report from 2021, an incident response plan, for example, is a critical element of a cybersecurity program, but only 1 in 3 law firms has one in place. And that's the kind of thing you want to have in place before you need it. You don't want to be Googling around, what do I do now, if and something happens. So regardless of the size of your firm, you should at a minimum have acceptable use, business continuity, and all the other ones listed on here. And it expands based on the type, the size of firm, the kind of data you're using and so forth. Security layer number 4 is dark web monitoring. So what is the dark web? You've probably heard of it, but for a lot of people, it's still kind of hard to grasp. So my metaphor that I use is the dark web is kind of like Amazon for cyber criminals. So if you want to get drugs, if you want to buy some weapons, if you want to buy stolen credit cards, if you want to buy credentials, you got it. You just go to the dark web. There's a kind of somewhat complicated way to get to it. And the truth is there's a whole bunch of other far worse stuff that I don't even want to mention that happens on the dark web. But what we're talking about here specifically are credentials, right? So when a third-party website gets hacked and its credentials are stolen, so something completely out of your control, the criminals typically have not yet been paid. They get their money once they go to the marketplace, the dark web, and they list it for sale. They say, hey, I just got 340,000 usernames and passwords from Netflix. Other criminals come by and they say, hey, I'll take 50,000 of those. I'll take 100,000 from Chase. They're a little more expensive, but they have a good ROI. And, I'll buy 500,000 from the Yahoo data breach, right? And then they go to work trying to get into your accounts. Now, I want you to imagine that you just found out that robbers had a copy of your home key and they could get in at will. They've been looking on Facebook, so they know you're really excited to go to Barbados for a week in the first week of September. Now, if you found out, A, would you want to know? I don't think you'd want to take the ostrich approach and not know. I'm guessing yes, you'd want to know. And if you knew, how long would you wait to change the locks? You would do it immediately, right? You're like, I'm leaving the webinar, I got to call the locksmith. And so that's what dark web scanning does for you. So it scans the dark web, okay, all these different marketplaces 24/7, And there's people that kind of, hide and go in there and they buy all these databases and then they put it into one massive database. And they're looking for any credentials under your law firm's domain. If there are any hits come up, you get notified right away. So, hey, Brenda, we just got an email for, smithlawfirm.com. You should take a look and see if anyone's using that password with that email address. So as soon as you change the password, and it's the same thing as changing the locks. So you've got to scan this continuously because there's always third-party data breaches happening and new credentials going on the web. I'm going to share something you probably won't like, but it's the truth. Those 3 slightly altered passwords that all of you use are probably already on the dark web. What do you mean 3 slightly altered passwords, Tom? Well, 15 years ago, you created your first password, or 20 years ago. At some point, you logged into a website and said, hey, that's not secure enough. You've got to add some numbers. So you're like, okay, you put a 1 at the end. Easy to remember, no problem. A few years later, your bank, you tried to log in and your bank said, hey, that's not secure enough. You need to have special characters. So you thought, I'm going to do what no one's going to think of. I'm going to change the S's to $signs. And I'm going to change the O's to zeros. No one's ever going to figure that out. Now, I'm saying that tongue in cheek, of course, but I know that it usually lands, and some of you might kind of be wriggling in your seats a little uncomfortable. But that's why it's so important to use unique passwords. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes as well. But if you use the same passwords in all these sites, even if you have great habits on your own computer, it's totally out of your control. Let's say your Netflix password is the same one you use for your email password at work. If Netflix gets breached, now they can try to use that to get into 365. Yeah, but I use my personal email and that's my work email. I forget the stats, but I think something like 40, 50, 60% of employees actually use their work email addresses on personal accounts. Okay. So let me tell you a true story here. Shannon ran a small family practice in Northern California, and believing that her practice was too small to be targeted, she barely bothered with online security practices. Until May 5th, 2018, she discovered evidence of unauthorized access to mycase.com, their case management software. She had to notify the authorities, her clients, and all related parties that their data had been compromised. The notice of a data breach here, a public document that any prospective clients can find about your law firm as well. And what it says here is the second highlighted section: client data was potentially accessed, client case information was deleted, and other administrative changes were made to the system. This is no joke. So let's talk about what she could have done to prevent this. If she had been using Dark Web ID, she would have found out on March 16th that a single hit, a single set of credentials became available on the dark web. She could have then checked and changed her passwords and kind of changed the locks like we talked about. Now you might see this and go, wow, she had a really good password. That's actually not her password. It's what's called hashed, which means it's still kind of encrypted. Well, there's tools out there that let you, if you can imagine, cyber criminals, they get paid a whole lot more if they can figure out the key to a hashed password, right? So if I have 100,000 usernames and passwords, but the passwords are encrypted, I can't sell them for anywhere close to what I can sell them if I've got the usernames and passwords unencrypted. So some cyber criminals, they work full time to crack some of these hashes. And once they do, they make them available to help other cyber criminals. What great teamwork. And so here, there's a tool called Crack Station. So I was able to put in her hashed password. I said, I'm not a robot, and crack, and it was able to crack it immediately. And you can see here, her password was Shannon, all lowercase. So if she was using dark web, she could have been notified, changed the password, and saved all the hassle of what she had to go through. Security layer number 5 is team-based password vault. As many as 65% of people reuse the same password for multiple or all accounts. That means there's 3 of you here, 2 of you probably do this. Maybe one of you has really good hygiene and doesn't, or maybe all of you are just awesome and not one of you in this room does this apply to, which I would love. But you've got to use a password management tool, because without one, You're going to share passwords insecurely via email. We're going to talk about why that's such a big no-no in a minute. It's going to scare you. It's going to help you create unique passwords, right? If you don't have a password management tool, you're going to stick to the 3 passwords because your brain cannot remember a unique password for every single website you log into, let alone making it complex enough that that's going to protect you. It also lets you securely store all work-related passwords and access and share passwords with colleagues. Security layer number 6. So you've got to use a password vault. If you're not using one of these, you absolutely must. It's just a ticking time bomb until one of your employees, one of their 3 passwords gets accessed and they get into a firm account. It's really simple. Security layer number 6 is, this one's kind of a mouthful, but it's proactive monitoring, maintenance, and patching for your Macs or PCs, along with antivirus and web protection. So what these tools do, typically if you've worked in a larger firm, you've had experience with these, but it's a tool you install on a computer and it reminds you when software updates and security patches have to be installed. So that's really important to automate and enforce that. If you're not using a tool like this, typically what I run into is you tell everyone in your firm, hey, you've got to make sure to run updates, okay? Or every Tuesday, run updates. No one does. I've seen it firsthand. Maybe a couple people, you do it because you're responsible, but everyone else is too busy to get it done. And so it leaves your computers at risk. The monitoring that these tools do let you know if there's a hard drive or a battery issue. It can kind of give you advanced warning before there's a major system failure. And then antivirus and malware are just that. You've got to run them. Even on Macs, we remove malware from Apple computers all the time. And then the last one is DNS web protection. What this does is it blocks malicious URL domains. So let's say you get an email, you don't catch it, and you click on the link and it takes you to a malicious website. A lot of times with this additional tool, it's going to block and say, hey, this is not a trusted website. We're going to stop you and not even let you go there. So again, it's just an additional security layer looking out for you 24/7. And these tools are typically called RMM in the IT space. The only way to get access to these solutions is typically when you fully outsource your IT to a managed service provider that typically runs $200 to $300 a month per user. If your firm is large enough to go direct and you're configuring, managing, and maintaining these tools, it takes a significant amount of financial and time investment. Security layer number 7 are cloud-to-cloud SaaS backup for Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace. Most people assume that Microsoft or Google are responsible for backing up all your data. They are not. They are responsible for keeping your data accessible, kind of maximizing uptime, right? So you'll hear about different data servers in different areas. So that's going to keep your uptime. But if someone accidentally deletes a folder and you don't realize until 3 months later, Microsoft and Google is not responsible to help you restore that to 3 months kind of point in time. So it's really important that you have a backup tool, a third-party backup tool that works for 365 and Google Workspace. It's also going to protect you from human error, which happens way more than you know, illegitimate deletion requests, sync errors, and then it's also going to protect you from hackers, malicious insiders, malware and viruses, and ransomware. Now that we've got more and more data living in 365 or Google, cyber criminals are starting to target them, and it's a complex admin infrastructure. So it's really important you've got a third-party backup. By the way, data is not always backed up in the way that you think. A lot of people don't realize this, but if you delete a user, let's say an employee leaves, and you go in and okay, we don't have to keep paying for their license. You delete them from Microsoft 365 or Google, their data is gone. Even if you have the archiving within Google, it deletes it. You have to keep paying for that license to maintain that data in there. Also, if you have an employee who goes AWOL and tries to cover their tracks or does something they shouldn't do, and they're like, "Oh, no problem, I'll go into the trash." You can delete an email, it goes in the trash. in Outlook, for example, then you can go in the trash and hit delete again, and now it's gone for good from there. So if you don't have a third-party backup, you're not going to have a way to do that. So it's immensely valuable for e-discovery as well. And these tools, the cloud-to-cloud backup, they're going to back up all your email, contacts, calendars, all your files, so in SharePoint, OneDrive, or Google Drive. All right. Security layer number 8 is the automated phishing defense platform. You probably won't be surprised when I say that today's spam filters don't work against phishing emails. If they did, you would never get any phishing emails. So an automated phishing defense platform is kind of the modern advanced spam filter that we used to have 10 years ago. And so it's AI based. It's looking and reading for every single email, and it's looking for red flags, and then it flags the email or just stops it altogether. And that's going to help you filter out 99.9% of sophisticated email attacks like business email compromise, ransomware, account takeover, and other advanced threats. So again, you flip the switch and it works 24/7 automatically in the background. I want to share a little example here about an account takeover with an opposing counsel that almost got our client as well. So Jason was a young lawyer, tech savvy enough to realize he needed good cybersecurity, but he was too busy to put it in place. He rescheduled with me 3 times in a few months, and he emailed me October 7th, 2020, saying our opposing counsel's email was hacked. The perpetrator had emailed Jason asking him to open a file. So these are screenshots of the exchange. And it said, I just sent a document for you now. Please check your inbox or junk folder as it's very important. He had been in communication with this opposing counsel. So the time, it didn't seem weird in terms of the time. To be safe, he replied and said, send me the file directly. Here's where it gets crazier. Within minutes, he got a reply. Thanks for your response. The requested email is legitimate and has been secured to your email. Kindly proceed to the document with your email to gain access and let me know your thoughts immediately. So it's extremely common today for cyber criminals to lurk in the shadows. Okay, when they get access to your email account, they use the wonderful indexing feature and they read your inbox, your sent folder. They'll type in social security number. They'll put in SSN. They'll put in wiring or routing number. They'll put in password. They'll also put in PW because you're smart enough not to write password when you emailed someone your password that one time, but it was only once. So instead you put PW and then you put your password. They're going to find that in seconds. Okay. And so everything is indexed and they know what to look for. And so I know this is creepy, but this is what happens all the time. You've got to be aware of it. The automated phishing defense platform would have flagged and intercepted that email, stopping the attacker dead in his tracks. Security layer number 9 is a VPN. Again, nothing new here. A VPN is like a secret hideout for your computer when you're online, right? It keeps you safe from bad people who might want to take your information. It helps protect your online privacy. It encrypts all your internet traffic. It hides your location and IP address, lets you remote into company resources, depending on the type of VPN, and also helps you bypass content restrictions and geo-blocking. When you're working on public Wi-Fi, it's absolutely crucial you always use a VPN, and everyone in your firm does as well. You go to the airport, you're busy, you just hop onto the open network, and what man-in-the-middle attacks is where cyber criminal intercepts your data by exploiting a security flaw in the network. Okay, so having a VPN will ensure all traffic in and out of your computer is going to be encrypted and that nothing's going to be able to be picked up. Security layer number 10 is a security operations center. You might have heard the term SOC before. And what this is, it's kind of like a group of digital bodyguards for your law firm. And so they're cybersecurity experts that keep an eye on all the technology, all the computers, ready to spot and tackle any threats. So it helps you have quick discovery of any potential security issues. It gets speedy action against threats. It reduces harm from security problems, better adherence to the rules, and a clear view of the overall health. And this is not only if everyone is in a physical office, right? So the tools are running on everyone's computers. Even if you have a distributed workforce, there's a lot more virtual law firms these days. And it gives you much more trust in your digital defenses you have in place, because it's someone that's constantly looking. As soon as something odd is picked up, they get to work on it. We're almost done. Thanks for hanging in there. I know I'm going fast. There's a lot to cover. Security layer number 11 is email encryption. Up until recently, that was always a really tough nut to crack. If you've worked with some banks or closing, like real estate closing companies, you've probably dealt with some of these where you have to create a username and password just to access it, and they're kind of a pain. The most modern ones make it really easy. So you just put brackets in the subject line and it encrypts the email. And so this makes sure that your email messages are protected from prying eyes by scrambling all the content and only making it readable by the right person who has the decryption key. So it helps guard private info, keeps confidentiality, reduce data breach risks. So that's another tool that's really valuable these days. And security layer number 12 is EDR, which is endpoint detection and response. So this is another set of tools you install on your computer, and it's kind of like a digital detective for all of your organization's devices. So it sniffs out advanced cyber threats that could bypass regular antivirus software. A lot of ransomware is able to do this. So by keeping a close eye on computers and on laptops and desktops, they're able to find and tackle problems fast. So as soon as they see some files starting to become encrypted, they can see that right when it starts and stop it immediately, protecting you from ransomware. So you get much faster reaction to incidents, and it gives you a significantly enhanced security posture. And it's kind of like a cyber fortress for small and mid-sized companies, right? Because 43% of cyber attacks are targeted at the small and mid-sized businesses. So it'll really give you more protection. And the last security layer are ransomware detection. So it's a little bit different from EDR, but this helps identify and block ransomware attacks specifically on computer systems. I'm going to skip what ransomware is. I think you know what it is, but what these tools do is provide real-time alerts and notifications to security teams, allowing them to take quick action to prevent or mitigate the impact of a ransomware attack. So I know that's a lot, but essentially those are the layers of security you need in your practice. So the next thought, you're probably overwhelmed going, oh my goodness, how on earth are we going to get to that? And the most important thing you need to understand is the question is not whether you will be attacked, but when. And the real question is, will you be prepared or not? So basically you get two options, right? Option one, you can do it yourself. You can go through all these notes. We're going to send you the slides. You can go and kind of shop around and try to get all the pieces, cobbled together that you need on your own. But the fact that you and I know is that you don't have the time, right? Even though you know you should do it, you're not going to do it. Whether you're the owner or managing partner or firm administrator or in-house IT, you're spread too thin. And if you could do it, you already would have, but here you are. So option number two is to let us implement everything for you. That is our mission. That is the only thing that we do. And we're going to do it quickly, efficiently, and inexpensively. So our mission is to make you look like a hero in the eyes of your shareholders, partners, and team members. And what you want to do is get you from where you are today to protected with peace of mind. Say, yes, we have comprehensive security in place and our risk is as low as it can get, right? And so you never have to think about it or worry about it again. Now, real quick, this is not for solo attorneys who, have a Yahoo or Gmail address. It's simply not a fit for firms who already have a managed service provider who are outsourcing all their needs to them. What I recommend for those firms is to bring this checklist and say, hey, I learned about all these solutions. Which ones of these do you have in place? And the ones that don't, why don't you, or can you offer them to us? If you still don't think you're at risk, it's definitely not a fit. And it's also for big law. We don't try to work for big law. It is a fit if your current role involves wearing a lot of different hats, right? Including technology and security. You're responsible for it, but you don't have the time to do it all. If you're an in-house IT person, you're spread too thin, you can probably relate with what I shared. They typically know the importance of cybersecurity, but they don't have the time or energy to address it properly. It's also a good fit if you want to proactively protect, the hard-earned experience and reputation of the law firm, and if you don't want to worry about all this stuff anymore. And so I'm proud to introduce BobaGuard, which is a solution we've created. And it's the first and only turnkey cybersecurity suite built for small to mid-sized law firms. It's even accessible for a true solo attorney. If it's just one person or two or three, they can get access to all these tools. Before we created this, there literally was not a solution where a lawyer could go and get access to these tools. And so what we do is deliver all the best-in-class solutions that we've curated to protect your law firm from getting hacked without the overwhelm of having to try to figure everything out on your own. And so the pricing structure is simple and flexible. So we've got a range of tiers carefully tailored to suit your firm's unique needs. So we intend to provide a scalable solution that effortlessly evolves alongside the growth of your firm. However, put your credit cards away because we'd first like to help you get started by doing some things for free. Everything, by the way, all of our solutions are month to month. There's no long-term commitments. We're really focused on delivering a lot of value. We have a very extensive account management process. So we're very relationship driven, and we provide you the support, ongoing monthly calls to get more and more value out of all the different tools. And so there's 4 free resources that we want to give you. The first is the cybersecurity manual for firm administrators. This is exactly what it says, right? So it's got all the tools we covered today. The second free resource is a cybersecurity strategy call. This is done via Zoom. And what we're going to do is define your biggest security risks and concerns, identify the correct strategies to protect your firm, build a custom plan to meet your ethical duties and give you peace of mind, and we're going to answer any questions you might have about your unique situation. Right? That's why we do the one-on-one call. We can get a lot deeper and get a much better understanding of your firm. The second thing, I'm really excited. This is something we just added, and we're going to give you a free penetration test. Now, if you've heard of these, they're typically very cost prohibitive. What this is going to do is help you unlock unparalleled cybersecurity insights. And so the first 5 people, so we got a small group, so if all 3 of you sign up, you'll be able to lock this in. You're going to be able to get a free comprehensive penetration test, which is typically valued at up to $5,000. And that's going to help you identify vulnerabilities and really secure your firm, because you're going to get a really clear view of the current risk you have today. And then free resource number 4 is a customized cybersecurity plan that's built around your firm's risks and concerns, along with recommended cybersecurity solutions. So based on your needs, we'll recommend the best fit for you. And the dollar value for all these resources is in the thousands of dollars. But the real value is that at the end of our time together, you're going to have a much better understanding of the threats, both known and unknown, that your law firm needs to be protected from. You'll learn the most effective solutions out there that are going to provide protection. And you're going to have a customized plan with specifics that give you the certainty in the actions you need to take within your firm to transform from being at risk to having peace of mind. We highly recommend bringing the managing partner if you can into that meeting, because it's important all the decision makers are there. So again, you're going to get the cybersecurity manual for law firm administrators, a cybersecurity strategy call, the penetration test with review of results, and a customized cybersecurity plan. And so you can scan that little QR code. We'll have it a few more times on the slides here. You might be wondering, like, okay, well, what's the catch? Why are you giving all this stuff away? There's really no catch. All 4 resources are free, and there's absolutely no obligation. My mission is to help you just get protected. If you do that with us, that's awesome. We'd love to work with you. If not, if you take this new information and you bring it to someone else who helps you implement it just so you get better security, that's awesome too. So if you want to book a time, go ahead and go to bobaguard.com/8, and you can claim all the free resources there. And, again, we'd love for you to become a client, but my passion is simply helping small and mid-sized law firms to protect themselves, protect their clients, and protect their livelihood. The cyber threat is real. The client data is at risk, but it doesn't have to be. So what I shared with you today is really exactly what you need to do step by step to make sure it does not happen in your law practice. So that wraps up the presentation. So if you want to take advantage of this free opportunity, go to bobaguard.com/8 or scan the little QR code. You can also shoot me a direct email at tom@bobaguard.com. We're going to put that in the chat here. And I'm happy, we're just 1 minute over. I'm happy to stay and answer any questions for as long as you'll put up with me. And that wraps up the presentation. So if you have any questions, go ahead and just, you can raise your hand, you can put in the Q&A section, or you can just type it into the chat box. I hope this was helpful and valuable for you. And yeah, so I'll wait a minute for you to put any questions if you have any here. I'm going to down my coffee because it's 3 p.m. here. And typically I try to finish my coffee at 2 o'clock. So I'll keep, yeah. So Richard, Joseph, thank you for joining us.